Hey, what do you say, gang? Hello, everybody. It's the American Doofus Show. Don't be a doofus. We have a special edition here. We're going to be monitoring the President of the United States, Joe Biden, as he gives an update, an address to the people of the United States on the situation in Ukraine. And the fact that a Russian invasion may be imminent. Now, earlier this morning, the first word we got was that Russia was going to be removing troops from the border and returning them to their permanent bases. As of this recording, there's no evidence that is happening. And without further ado, let's see what President Biden has to say.
He said that he has no intention of putting U.S. troops on the ground.
And while we see the president there, he's literally walking out. So let's go to him now, President of the United States.
Today, I'd like to provide an update on the crisis involving Russia and Ukraine. From the beginning of this crisis, I have been absolutely clear and consistent. The United States is prepared no matter what happens. We are ready with diplomacy, to be engaged in diplomacy with Russia and our allies and partners to improve stability and security in Europe as a whole. And we are ready to respond decisively to Russian attack on Ukraine, which is still very much a possibility. For all the events of the last few weeks and months, this has been our approach, and it remains our approach now. So today I want to speak to the American people about the situation on the ground, the steps we've taken, the actions we're prepared to take, and what's at stake for us and the world, and how this may impact on us here at home. For weeks now, together with our allies and partners, my administration has engaged in non-stop diplomacy. This weekend, I spoke again with President Putin to make clear that we are ready to keep pursuing high-level diplomacy, to reach written understandings among Russia, the United States, and the nations of Europe to address legitimate security concerns, if that's his wish. There's security concerns and ours. President Putin and I agree that our team should continue to engage toward this end, along with our European allies and partners. Yesterday, the Russian government publicly proposed to continue the diplomacy. I agree. We should give the diplomacy every chance to succeed. And I believe there are real ways to address our respective security concerns. The United States has put on the table.
Just pause this here for just a second. The security concerns of Russia are that Ukraine wants to become part of NATO. They're not part of NATO now, and Putin has said they will never be part of NATO.
Concrete ideas to establish a security environment in Europe.
Just so everybody's clear, that's really the basis of what this is all about. Of course, that's the theater of it. It's all about money, actually, as we know.
We're proposing new arms control measures, new transparency measures, new strategic stability measures. These measures will apply to all parties, NATO and Russia alike. We're willing to make practical result-oriented steps that can advance our common security. We will not sacrifice basic principles, though. Nations have a right to sovereignty and territorial integrity. They have the freedom to set their own course and choose with whom they will associate. But that still leaves plenty of room for diplomacy and for de-escalation. That's the best way forward for all parties in our view. We'll continue our diplomatic efforts in close consultation with our allies and our partners. As long as there is hope of diplomatic resolution that prevents the use of force and avoids incredible human suffering that would follow, we will pursue it. The Russian defense minister reported today that some military units are leaving their positions near Ukraine. That would be good, but we have not yet verified that. We have not yet verified the Russian military units are returning to their home bases. Indeed,
I use social media to verify. I look for on the ground personal accounts, not mainstream media for verifications. And actually what's being shown on a lot of social media is just the opposite, showing tanks coming into fields nearby the Ukrainian border.
our analysts indicate that they remain very much in a threatening position. And the fact remains, right now, Russia has more than 150,000 troops encircling Ukraine and Belarus and along Ukraine's border.
That's a new number. It was 100,000.
An invasion remains distinctly possible. That's why I've asked several times that all Americans in Ukraine leave now before it's too late to leave safely. It is why we have temporarily relocated our embassy from Kyiv to Lviv in Western Ukraine, approaching the Polish border. And we've been transparent with the American people and with the world about Russia's plans and the seriousness of the situation so that everyone can see for themselves what is happening. We've shared what we know and what we're doing about it. Let me be equally clear about what we are not doing. The United States and NATO are not a threat to Russia. Ukraine is not threatening Russia. Neither the US nor NATO have missiles in Ukraine. We do not have plans to put them there as well. We're not targeting the people of Russia. We do not seek to destabilize Russia. To the citizens of Russia, you are not our enemy. And I do not believe you want a bloody, destructive war against Ukraine, a country and a people with whom you share such deep ties of family, history, and culture. 77 years ago, our people fought and sacrificed side by side to end the worst war in history. World War II was a war of necessity. But if Russia attacks Ukraine, it will be a war of choice or a war without cause or reason. I say these things not to provoke, but to speak the truth, because the truth matters. Accountability matters. If Russia does invade in the days and weeks ahead, the human cost for Ukraine will be immense. And the strategic cost for Russia will also be immense. If Russia attacks Ukraine, it'll be met with overwhelming international condemnation. The world will not forget.
I'm pausing this here because Putin doesn't care about condemnation. Okay. While members of the Democratic Party will cower if you say there's going to be condemnation, the rest of the world, especially Putin, not so much.
That Russia chose needless death and destruction. Invading Ukraine will prove to be a self-inflicted wound. The United States and our allies and partners will respond decisively. The West is united and galvanized. Today, our NATO allies and the alliance is as unified and determined as it has ever been. And the source of our unbreakable strength continues to be the power, resilience, and universal appeal of our shared democratic values.
I question this. I question the statement that NATO is as united as ever. First of all, Europe, united as the European Union. Great Britain stepped out of that. I would say Great Britain is probably the only true dependable ally the United States may have in Europe. I don't think, this is just my opinion, this is just analysis, I'm not stating it as fact. I don't feel the United States could count on Germany or France. I'm not sure they could count on either or neither should push come to shove.
Because this is about more than just Russia and Ukraine. It's about standing for what we believe in, for the future we want for our world, for liberty, the right of countless countries to choose their own destiny, and the right of people to determine their own futures, for the principle that a country can't change its neighbors' borders by force. That's our vision.
We can't change our own country by force either. For those that still have that up here in your heads.
Toward that end, I'm confident that vision, that freedom will prevail. If Russia proceeds, we will rally the world to oppose its aggression. The United States and our allies and partners around the world are ready to impose powerful sanctions on export controls, including actions that we did not pursue when Russia invaded Crimea and eastern Ukraine in 2014. We put intense pressure on their largest and most significant financial institutions and key industries.
It's always about the money.
These measures are ready to go as soon and if Russia moves. We'll impose long-term consequences, will undermine Russia's ability to compete economically and strategically. And when it comes to Nord Stream 2, the pipeline that would bring natural gas from Russia to Germany, if Russia further invades Ukraine, it will not happen.
Okay, now the German people aren't going to be happy about that, not being able to get natural gas at a decent cost.
While I will not send.
So the reason I'm pointing all these things out is because it's just it is so much bigger than just Russia invading Ukraine.
American servicemen to fight in Ukraine. We have some.
Let's see, can I back that?
And key industries. These measures are ready to go as soon and if Russia moves. We'll impose long-term consequences, will undermine Russia's ability to compete economically and strategically. And when it comes to Nord Stream 2, the pipeline that would bring natural gas from Russia to Germany, if Russia further invades Ukraine, it will not happen. While I will not send American servicemen to fight in Ukraine, we have supplied the Ukrainian military with equipment to help them defend themselves.
Okay. That's what I had thought he said. That's why I wanted to back it up. He has said no U.S. servicemen will be sent to Ukraine. I don't know if I've heard that alluded to before. I don't know if I've heard him say that. To me, what Putin hears green light. Okay, you go ahead and take Ukraine, but don't go anywhere else. Don't actually look at going into an actual NATO country, because Ukraine's not a NATO country. But it could also, the thing about ground forces is you can bomb, you can shoot missiles, you can have air attacks, but in order to control, you've got to have ground forces. And they've got 150,000 ground forces, and up from 100,000. So some of Russia's not lying. Some of those troops are going to be going back to their bases because they've been out there so long. It doesn't mean they're not going to be replaced. It doesn't mean the lines are being weakened. Okay, just so everybody has a grasp on where we're really at in deciphering what he's really saying. He's just given the green light, in my opinion, to Russia go ahead and invade Ukraine, but don't go any farther. We'll see.
We provided training and advice and intelligence for the same purpose. And make no mistake,
One more thing, it just struck me. Chris and I talked about this about probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now, about how the fact that that Russia and China are cool allies at the moment. They're not, they're not in love with each other. They're tepid allies at the moment. There's no major conflicts between the two of them at the moment. So could Russia and China have an arrangement that Russia tries to draw the United States into war in the Ukraine, while China invades Taiwan and tries to draw the United States into a war down there? The fact that Biden is saying no ground forces into Ukraine is a good sign as far as our service men and women's families. Okay, let me be real clear about that. From a geopolitical sign, it's a sign that you can have Ukraine, just don't go anywhere else. It's kind of how Hitler was treated at the beginning of World War II. Okay, we're not going to do anything about what you've just done with the Blitzkrieg, but don't go any farther. And of course, he was like, right, you haven't stopped me yet. You're not going to stop me. Putin may have that same mindset.
the United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power.
NATO
An
territory.
attack against one NATO country is an attack against all of us.
NATO.
The United States commitment to Article 5 is sacrosanct. Already, in response to Russia's buildup of troops, I've sent additional U.S. forces to bolster NATO's eastern flank. Several of our allies have also announced they'll add forces and capabilities to ensure deterrence and defense along NATO's eastern flank. We'll also continue to conduct military exercises with our allies and partners to enhance defensive readiness. And if Russia invades, we'll take further steps to reinforce our presence in NATO, reassure us for our allies, and deter further aggression. To be clear, if Russia decides to invade, that would also have consequences here at home. But the American people understand that defending democracy and liberty is never without cost. This is a cause that unites Republicans and Democrats. And I want to thank the leaders and members of Congress of both parties who forcefully spoken out in defense of our most basic, most bipartisan, most American principles. I will not pretend this will be painless. There could be impact on our energy prices. So we are taking active steps to alleviate the pressure on our own energy markets and offset raising prices.
Again, Chris and I talked about this a month ago. Biden is now talking to the American people that, this is coming, all right? And when it comes, it's a CYA. I told you it was coming, okay?
We're coordinating with major energy consumers and producers. We're prepared to deploy all the tools and authority at our disposal to provide relief at the gas pump. And I'll work with Congress on additional measures to help protect consumers and address the impact of prices at the pump. We are not seeking direct confrontation with Russia, though I've been clear that if Russia targets Americans in Ukraine, we will respond forcefully. And if Russia attacks the United States or our allies through asymmetric means, like disruptive cyber attacks against our companies or critical infrastructure, we're prepared to respond. But we're moving in lockstep with our NATO allies and partners to deepen our collective defense against threats in cyberspace. Two paths are still open. For the sake of historic responsibility, Russia and the United States share for global stability, for the sake of our common future, to choose diplomacy. But let there be no doubt, if Russia commits this breach by invading Ukraine, responsible nations around the world will not hesitate to respond. We do not stand for freedom. where it is at risk today will surely pay a steeper price tomorrow. Thank you. I'll keep you informed.
I don't know. It just, I don't know if he's going to be taken seriously. He tried to be forceful there at the end, and I almost laughed. I'm not sure why, but I just don't. I don't know. Let's see how this goes. He's not taking any questions.
President Biden speaking just now and not answering those questions you heard from reporters shouted out. But here's what he had to say. The president warned Russia that it will face steep sanctions, pressure on financial institutions and industries, and a united group of countries if it invades Ukraine. However, the president also encouraged continued diplomacy.
He didn't say there, nobody's going to stop him. Nobody's going to fight back against him, which to me is concerning because not everybody plays by the same set of rules, either morally, ethically, or geopolitically. Let's listen just a little bit more here. This is probably, it's the Washington Post, so we'll see.
Saying two paths forward still exist. You're watching a Washington Post special report. So those remarks lasted less than 10 minutes, but certainly will resonate. The president saying, if we do not stand for freedom, that the US and other countries around the world will pay a steeper price. With me right now, national security reporter Paul Son. As also we see John Hudson and Rhonda Colvin. Welcome to you all. Paul, let's talk about the message President Biden delivered. It really was multifold in that he had a message to the American people about how difficult this could be, but he was also speaking directly to Russians and to President Putin.
Yeah, I think some of the critical things he said that we haven't really heard that much before is previously the U.S. had been saying there were around 100,000 troops, 120,000 troops. He's now saying there are 150,000 troops, Russian troops surrounding Ukraine. So that means that U.S. intelligence has some information about an escalation even in the last couple of weeks. He also said that the U.S. doesn't see the pullback of Russian forces that the Russian defense minister mentioned in recent hours. So it seems like the U.S. side is certainly not willing to say that Russia is de-escalating, as Vladimir Putin suggested. And the other thing is that he made it clear, I think, to Russia that he is not going to be deterred by possible consequences to the American population in taking significant sanctions and financial measures against Russia. That's a new message coming from Biden.
Okay, the question becomes, if the United States cuts off whatever they're threatening to cut off from Russia, is Russia able to get whatever they need to get from China? And the answer is probably yes. So again, I don't know how I don't know if the threat has teeth. Let's put it that way.
I think he's trying to tell people that if some of these actions that they're considering are taken against Russia, there will probably be blowback, particularly on the Europeans, but also potentially on Americans in the energy market. And I think what he's trying to communicate to the Kremlin is just because there will be blowback, don't think that I'm not ready to do this.
We'll dig more into what the president said in just a moment. But Paul, before I let you go, you've been reporting on how TikTok, social media has been revealing what's really happening on the ground. We hear one thing, but then these images that are sent out and shared on social media are revealing much more.
Yeah, it's something that actually saw during the 2014 conflict when Russia first invaded Ukraine. What we found was a lot of Russian soldiers posting selfies, suggesting that they were on Ukrainian territory, even as Russian officials denied that Russian troops were anywhere inside Ukraine apart from Crimea. And this time it's not coming so much from Russian troops. They actually passed a law in Russia banning soldiers from using smartphones and devices in order to prevent those kinds of posts. What we're seeing now is posts primarily coming from people who live in Russian towns near the border of Ukraine, people who are driving on highways and seeing convoys, including tanks and missiles and weapons going by them on the street, moving into fields. And so even as Russian forces are saying that they're not preparing for an invasion of Ukraine, we're seeing this outpouring of posts on social media from people who live in and around the Ukrainian border, in
What I was saying earlier.
Belarus and in Russia, showing that this is in fact happening.
All right, thanks so much, Paul. Let's go to John Hudson now. John, what stood out to you? We heard some details from Paul about what President Biden revealed in that, but what else can you add in terms of the messaging there to the international community and to Vladimir Putin?
Nice kitchen, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. What I heard was a president very much preparing the American public for a potential diplomatic solution. I mean, a lot of the messaging that has come out of the United States and come out of the Biden.
What? Who is this guy? What he heard was preparing for a diplomatic. Okay, I got to stop there. That's enough. That's absurd. That's just absolutely absurd. Preparing for a diplomatic solution. What he was preparing for was higher gas prices, was look for cyber attacks here at home. He wasn't preparing us for atomic bombs. He wasn't preparing us for invasion. He was preparing us for the repercussions of the invasion that is coming, because he just gave the green light. France earlier said they weren't going to put any troops in there. Most NATO countries said we're not going to send any troops to Ukraine because they're not a member of NATO. And remember, at the very beginning, I said this is all about Ukraine wanting to become a member of NATO and Russia not allowing that to happen. And if we do indeed allow Russia to take Ukraine and say, okay, that's it, no more, you know, all that does is every time you allow a bully to take another little piece, they're going to keep taking and taking and taking until they're forcibly stopped. So that's my opinion. What's yours? Well, you'll be able to share it with me Thursday night on the People's Platform. We'll be talking about this and more Thursday night, 10:30 p.m. live. You can leave a comment below. My latest book is out. My third novel's out, the first of a new series. It's called America, Land of the Greed and Home of the Grave. A link to buy it is available in the description below, and I hope you will do so. Buy the other two books as well. They're good stories, okay? And you may find yourself sometime in the middle of a storm with no power for 3 or 4 days, so you can't watch TV, you can't use the internet, and you need some books to read. Buy my books. Again, the links in the descriptions below. And thank you for watching this, all of you, as always. Those that are regular watchers, mwah, I love you all. If you're new to the show, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when we're on, and leave me a like if you would. Thank you all for watching. This has been a special edition of the American Doofus Show, reaction to President Biden's speech on the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. And until next time, again, live Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be live, and you can actually join me, or you can, if you got a question or a topic you want to talk about, you can email me, American Doofus, all one word, AMERICANDUFUS for doofus @gmail.com. If you'd like to help support the show and you have Cashapp, $ American Doofus, again, AMERICANDUFUS, $ American Doofus, all one word, to help support the show with a small donation. Those are always appreciated. And I love y'all. Thank you again for watching. Until next time, it is the American Doofus Show. Salam, peace, namaste, blessings, shalom. I love y'all. It's the American Doofus Show. Don't be a doofus.